let's see, we still have a view of the silliness. So last week I worked on painting black with different highlight colors to show the difference that can make and how you can work that into a color scheme. I used a somewhat satin finish black, and I did that intentionally because it looks darker, but I think it also makes it a little harder to see the comparison. So I want to seal these guys, but I realized my sealer is down to its last legs, so I will not be doing that today. I will have to send away and get some more brush on sealer. But I coated them at the front, so this one was a blue-gray. This one was neutral. And so on. So if you're interested in that, I'm sure that's still streaming on here on Twitch, and I'm pretty sure I saw that John uploaded that to YouTube as well. Michael Pink's Minis. My mom keeps sending catnip toys for Tiberius, the very feral cat, because all I need is more energy in him. Yet fortunately, he doesn't really care about it. Yeah, it's not every cat. They need to, when they're very young, they don't care. And then I think it's about 80% or something. So there are some cats that are just kind of, wow, Corbin's really flying today. That's hilarious. I don't think I've seen him get that goofy before. I hope he doesn't fall off. Gravity is not on his side. I Draw Carolines. Hey, hello. Gilded Brush Studios. Tiberius has ascended the need for catnip. Yeah, he's got the built-in catnip. Yep, Corbin's having a grand old time over there. Apart from the periodic ambushes. He's like, but we're friends. Why you ambush me? And Tabby's like, because I'm so bored. I'm the most bored. Okay, everybody needs to remember that gravity is a thing. They do not. They do not remember that gravity is a thing. Gravity is a human problem. So many times we've had to stop those brown guys from falling down. Like sometimes walking is a challenge. Or black, I don't know. I don't know what color you think those cats are. If it's dark brown or if it's black and light colors for the tortoiseshell. I don't know what she's doing with the hiding her head behind the circle. Maybe she thinks we can't see her this way. And she's wrong. All right, so that was last week. Oh, and we've got one that's late to the party, but I don't think there's enough room for you right now, bud. You will have to get your nip later. Corbin was staring off into the distance for a minute. He was like, I see the colors. There's number 3's head. She's all like, catnip, where was I? I like the nip the most of all of them. Which is true. She does. But in theory, we're here to paint miniatures. In theory. I mean, I don't know what kind of theory that is, but... All right, so... Some time ago, I saw a Kickstarter for a grabby thing for sponges, and I looked around, and they already make grabby things for sponges. And I've also seen a number of people on YouTube and other places painting with makeup sponges. Usually not the ones like this. There's rounded ones that look more like an egg or a kidney bean or something. So all the edges are round. So that's a good product for using for that purpose. But certainly people use this kind too. I know that James Wapple uses this kind a lot for various things. He does a lot of wiping away, so he'll apply like an oil wash or something like that and then wipe away a lot. And he tends to use these for the wiping away. rather than adding paint to, but I've seen people using these for alternate methods of applying paint, particularly if you want a chipped or worn out looking surface. Gilded Brush Studios just snuck one of those egg-shaped sponges from Mrs. Gilded, interested to learn how best to use them. I had some of the egg-shaped ones, and I had the bad fortune of purchasing one, even though I've seen people using colored ones. The ones I had released the color when they got wet. So whatever dye they had been made with, they were intended to be used dry, so I've thrown them out, and I don't have any of those right now. I will have to go see if I can buy some that are more neutral color. I Draw Carolines, aren't the eggy ones pricier? I don't know if they sell them at, I've heard people that they sell them at the dollar store too, so maybe they aren't so pricey there. I had bought like a little container that had various sizes and stuff in it, and it can't have been very expensive or I wouldn't have bought it, because I, just bought it to goof around and try some stuff. Gilded Brush Studio sold an old one, so when they got caught, the Mrs. Gilded was okay with it. And I Draw Caroline says, ignore the cardinal rule, don't get caught. But I've also seen these things, people use these for doing the fingernail polish. One of the things they like to do is an ombre effect, basically what we would call blending from one color to another color. And they use these little sponges. And let's see if the camera can focus on it. I was looking at the textures. So this is a typical makeup sponge. I think the egg ones are a little smoother than this. The egg ones are probably more like this material, which really I am not seeing a ton of texture from at all. Like, it's a very smooth sponge comparatively. And even this, I mean, that looks enormous on camera, but just to give you, this is a regular kitchen sponge. These are the sponges that I use for wicking my brush, actually, but that's a new one. And here's my old damp one. So you can see the texture difference. Now, people use these as well, and that's more for doing the chipping damage type effect. So, and you could cut pieces of this off and use it with this thing as well. So I've seen things sold. I've seen people that are also, they take a brush apart, use the brush protector thingy. So they pull the brush head off of a brush, which I will not do, but demonstration purposes will. I don't think I happen to have one. I have had some that are loose, but I don't think I have one right now. Oh, look at that. I do. So they'll pull this thing off, usually a bigger brush than this, put this on, and like get a bunch of sponge and put it there. The sponge I saw someone doing it with was more like, this is pretty fine for a blister pack sponge. That's why I kept this. I actually use this to moisten my sculpting tools. But they took something like a blister pack sponge, twisted it down in there, and so there's just a little head sticking up. Like that, something like that. And then use that for the chipping. Gilded Brush Studios tried that recently with some leather, works fine. So like this larger pour sponge for leather. But this grabby thing means you can use whatever sponge you want. And if John really did make the title of the show, Piercing Ball Grabber, that is, if you just wanted to buy this tool on its own, that is what it is called. It is called a piercing ball grabber. I am not making that up. I purchased it as a set with the fine sponges, and where did I write? I wrote it down. I don't know if I can put links in the chat, but I wrote down. This is an affiliate link, which mostly is just because you get the nice shorter link. So, if you happen to buy this, I will earn like 3 cents or something. Is John the expert in such things? No, but I text him my titles, and I wasn't sure if he'd want to put that on. But he didn't say anything when I said my title was testing a piercing ball grabber. The name was hilarious to me, so I thought we might as well use the real name for the thing instead of, you know, nail sponge grabber or something. I also really enjoyed let me see if I can find the instructions from the nail people for how to use this tool. Catch the pen and expose your paws, by which I mean I assume they mean do that, but catch the pen and expose your paws. Grab a piece of tofu cotton. Apparently this is tofu cotton. And then it starts making sense. Dip an appropriate amount of nail art gel polish or chrome nail powder, even out the gradient effect. So those are the parts we're gonna have to figure out how we do it on miniatures instead, with paint instead of gel. But we can draw encouragement from the fact that Gilded Brush Studios used this recently for leather, tore it up, twisted it into a brush cap, and used it with a little more precision, and it worked great. Gilded Brush says, if anything, the title was decent clickbait. That's what I figured. All right, so most people are getting them wet before that. So I decided that probably a wet palette would not be the way to go for this. I have one ready if we need to switch over for some reason. But so this is just a wet palette tray with a piece of palette paper in it to use non-wetly. Oh, the other tool you can use. So if you want to try this at home, but you don't have a piercing ball grabber, because why would you? And you don't want to, you know, take apart a brush to do the thing we were saying with the brush ends. Most people are doing it with like larger size brushes that they wouldn't use on miniatures, like this one that they're like, you probably still have the cap and you have the thing on it. And yes, I do. But if you have tweezers, the annoying thing about that is you have to hold them shut. So what's even better is reverse tweezers, because they close automatically. And I thought I had another set. Yes, I do. So if you're like eager to go try this right this minute, but you don't have a piercing ball grabber, all you got to do is find some kind of sponge in your house and get your tweezers or your reverse tweezers, and you can be off to the races. But since I have one of these, I'm going to try using that first. And I figured I would do it on a figure that I am familiar with, which is this guy from the Learn to Paint kit. Actually, I must have a better one here. So these, just to be clear, all the figures I have today from the Learn to Paint kits, these are really old. This is from when Reaper first started doing COCast. And they've since refined the process and the materials that they used to do it. But they sent me a bunch of the Learn to Paint kit guys, and rather than wasting them, I use them on experiments like this. And he's a great guy to test blending, because he's got those rounded folds that are tough. They can be tough to blend. But he's not the most challenging one. I have another figure that I like and that we did a bunch of experiments on the show with some time ago. Like years, when I first started the show. Maybe we want to make it a little damp, because I assume it is going to suck up paint like nobody's business. I'm just going to dampen it on my sponge. There is a kitty still here, but she's very sleepy now that, you know, the nip is really kicked in. So that's why we aren't doing oh, Karen says I'm desperately trying to ignore your comments. That is not true. I'm just behind in the chat. Well, okay, I'm not reading all of your ball piercing, grabbing comments that made Michael say youch. Kara says one of the great joys in life is making fun of an embarrassed cat who's trying to casually play off a fun. No, I totally saw that. You goofed. You so goofed. Yes, it is hilarious. Way back in the day when cats could sleep on televisions because they were like, you know, that wide or wider. My friend had this big fat cat that liked to sleep on their TV, and he would roll off periodically and try to play it off like he didn't mean to do that. And it's like, no, guy, we know you didn't mean to do that. All right, so I'm actually going to try to paint him sort of the color scheme that he is in the Learn to Paint kit, because I have some of those colors in 2.0. I don't have a really dark red, but we're going to make our own really dark red by adding a little Black Knight liner. And you do need just a little. So my recollection is that that is similar to the color. I don't know if I will have wanted something more absorbent than so far. I'm not disappointed. I think I gotta get some on one of the edges to press in some places. Oops. That's why I wanted to use tape instead of just blue tack, because I knew I would be pushing a bit. So getting in around his staff is a bit of a challenge. Which is, I'm not sure how people are using the egg brushes. The videos I was watching this morning where people are doing that, they're using it as an alternate for my brain is blanking. You know, doing a zenithal prime or the thing you do before you put the washes and contrast on and stuff. And my brain is just completely blanking on the made-up word that we've created for that. So I don't know if I think it's the most efficient for doing the base coat, because there are certainly places that would just be much easier to reach with a brush. And I did go through a bit of paint doing this. fact, I shall have to mix more. So let's see. Clean that up a little. Kara, I love how they understand that emotion is complex as an embarrassment. It also implies that they know the content of judgment because they do it and they know it will be applied to them in equal measure. One of my favorite quotes from Evil Varick 666 on Tumblr. Cats understand naughty. In fact, I think they're the only animal who understands it. Dogs know good and bad, but not naughty. Same with theft. Cats know what theft is. They know when they are thieving, and you can see it on their faces. Gilda Brush was thinking the same thing about the eggs being bigger. But slap chop, that's it. I saw people using it for slap chop where you don't want it to go in the little crevices because you want those to stay dark. So that would kind of make sense to use it for that. I mean, it seemed to work decently well, the examples I saw. Squirrels are thieves, but they don't know that. They know take and have, but they don't comprehend what it is to steal, nor do raccoons or coyotes or any species of rodent. They may participate in theft, but they are ignorant of the weight of what they do, the full meaning of it. Cats know what crime is, and they do it on purpose. Gilded Brush, also why I love crows who know bartering in addition to stealing. Kara, I feel that crows are fairly accepted as being brighter than the average bird. Since we encounter and interact with cats more often, you see the full beautiful spectrum between, oh, you clever bastard, and God, you dumb butt, the universe laughs at you. Yeah, they've done some very interesting studies with crows. Crows and there's a kind of parrot as well. And it's funny because there are some problems that they will solve in different ways because the crows are very cautious of some things where the parrots are not. Because I think where they live, they don't have a lot of predators. I think they're from New Zealand or something. So I don't know about fur base coat. Maybe on something large. There is a video of Zumitko doing sponge painting on some big vehicles with the makeup, the egg sponges that he grabbed off his girlfriend. And she buys the expensive Sephora ones. Oh, apparently I didn't make enough paint for a brush. Ron does have cat. He has His cat is named Halloween, and she is a tortoiseshell as well. She's very pretty. So yeah, the hood and the cloak were base coated with the sponge, and I think you can see that it's not, you know, you would have to do a second coat. Speaking of cat hair. But I did not fully wet the sponge, and perhaps that made a difference. I'm sure there is a learning curve and various ways to do things. So you definitely have to accept that kind of thing if you're going to strike out and try materials and tools that are not customary in our hobby. But honestly, anytime you're trying something new, you're going to have to figure out how to make it work with the way you do things, and, you know, can it do what you want? And you're going to have to experiment, and you're going to have to accept that it might not go great. You know, some of your experiments might not be successes. And that's as true for, you know, me who has been painting for 20 years or something, as it is for someone who's been painting 20 minutes. When you're trying new things, you're not always going to get it right the first go. Even if you've watched, you know, what are you doing, you weird cat? Even if you've watched a dozen videos, and you've seen experts do it over and over, you doing it is still different than you just having abstract knowledge of someone else doing it. But certainly it's true when we're experimenting with tools that we don't know much about, like these sponges. Johan Wee, sorry, I'm late to the party. You used a sponge before. Why? Is it easier than base painting with a brush? I'm trying to find that out, and I did not find it easier than base painting with a brush. So I'm experimenting today with this tool that holds sponges, but we're looking at other tools that you can hold sponges with, like tweezers and reverse tweezers. So if you want to try this, you don't have to have this tool. People also cook up things with paintbrushes where they get sponges on the end of the wooden part of a paintbrush so that they can use that as a tool as well. So my initial attempt using just the sponge, there were places that the paint couldn't reach even when I was using the edge of the square sponge, and the coverage wasn't quite as robust as painting it on with the brush. Now, this is the first time I've ever tried using these sponges, so it may be that I made the sponge a little bit damp. I didn't completely wet it, so it's possible it was soaking up more paint than it would if it was very wet. It's pretty wet now, so I'm just going to use this, I think, to do the next stage. But maybe I want to start with a, you know, fresh color. I don't know. I certainly can try wetting this one, getting the paint off of it. Gilded Brush has subscribed for 11 months, currently on a 9-month streak. Well, thank you. Gilded Brush was asking about the history of Zeus, whether Zeus belongs to Ron or someone else at the Reaper store, and he belongs to someone named DJ. But he's kind of the Reaper Store mascot now, which did years ago used to be a cat. So it washed out pretty well. I'm actually surprised at how well it washed out of the brush. I mean, out of the sponge. So now I have a somewhat damp sponge. Doesn't feel massively different than it did when I just dampened it, but we shall see once this paint is dry, which it almost is, for part 2. I'm using the Reaper 2.0 paints. These are paints that Reaper plans to kickstart in a few months, I think. At some point. This is not the final label. But this is like a set of revised and improved paints over the original Master Series. Some of them are more pigmented. Some of them just flow better and stuff. Ann Forster is the lady who made the original set and did the modifications, and she has a show every day at 11:30 during the week. So if you want to know a lot more about these, I recommend that you watch her show, or you look for videos from a channel called Painting Big on YouTube, where she's talked about why there's a new set and what's different about it. I don't have all of the ones that are planned by any means. I have about 23, I think, 25, something like that. But I just, because I have them, I think it's nice for me to share my experiences with them and show them on stream so that people can start getting an idea of what they're like. So that is why I'm using those. But I am trying to follow roughly the color scheme from the original Learn to Paint kit, which this guy is in. So there's still a little bit of moisture in the recesses, but I don't want to paint the recesses, so I'm going to go ahead and just give it a shot here. I have some board game figures that I'd like to paint in a much more quick way than my usual way. So if this turns out to be viable, that would be pretty cool for me. Certainly this is quick, I'll say that. I think the idea of doing, I guess you would call it sponge chop instead of slap chop, is interesting as well. Because I think this is faster than I could use those dome dry brushes. Places I want a little bit redder. I have to pick a color to go on top of this. Let's see. Got 2 oranges. I like this one better, but I'm going to mix in just a little bit of pink too. going for a salmon. So now I probably want to start trying to be a little more careful, a little more deliberate. The smaller I make the jump, and that's a decent jump. It's not huge, but it's a decent jump. The more subtle this would be. I don't think it's going terribly. Let's see if I can get just a little corner. Get in there. Yep. So I'm kind of going up and down. I don't want to drag the paint into areas that I wish to look darker. I should have got that shoulder with the red previously as well. Oop, sorry, I was going up a little bit there. Hopefully I haven't been doing that the whole time. Kara says this is looking like it's working pretty nicely, but do you know what color would work better with? Purple. Everything works better with purple. Burgundy. Well, burgundy would have been nice for the shadows, but some people don't have burgundy wine as yet in the new configuration. So some people must sadly make do with what they have. So see, that probably wasn't what I wanted. And do we want to go just a little brighter? So I don't think that's terrible. People are trying to guess when you've used burgundy wine. That is foolish of them, because you've always used it. It's become a meme, I think, to point out that I hadn't used burgundy wine and recently posted a model on Discord. Then I proceed to point out the usual and unusual places where it was in fact used. Even on Ghost Lady, there was nearly cool colors. Entirely cool colors on there. Yeah, that's like, it's really hard for me to paint a model that doesn't have purple on it. You may not see the purple, but there is purple. Like this guy right here needs to put some purple. I don't know. I'm for a model where, you know, you've got one big color block like that, I think that worked pretty well. Guardians MH is rating with a party of 7. Hello, Guardians MH and Raiders. Welcome to me testing out painting with sponges. So we just finished adding some highlights to this guy with these little sponges. They clean off surprisingly well. So now I could test doing the same thing with dome dry brushes, or I could try some sponge painting on a guy with, you know, that's not all one big color block. Let's see. I hope you had a great stream as well. Gilded brush. I mean, admittedly, I thought burgundy wine was a little overhyped at first, but it is pretty good. I got to use it at Repricon this year, so I saved myself a bottle. I like burgundy wine, but my overhyped paint is blue liner. I have been, since I don't have that in the 2.0 paints either, I've been using this Black Knight liner a lot, and I like that too. So I guess the thing is, we discovered that it may not be the best for getting a first coat of paint on. So I will quickly, I don't think that's dark enough for our darkest layer. If I were painting him as Caucasian, that would probably be dark enough. But I want to paint him like similar colors to the Learn to Paint kit. And he started probably even with a darker skin than that, but we'll leave it at that for now. For anyone who came in a bit later, these are older figures from when Reaper first switched over to making the Siocast miniatures in-house. They use a different material now. It's a little less bendy, and they've improved the process a lot. So if these miniatures seem perfect, don't assume that that is the quality that Reaper is currently producing, because it is not. These were sent to me right after they started making the new figures, and I didn't want to waste them, so I used them for tests like this. Partly, you know, we're called Beyond the Kit here, and so every now and then I like stuff from the kit, or ideas from the kit, the Reaper Learn to Paint kits, that is, to show up on stream. And it has been a hot minute since that happened. I don't know if there might be some of you out there who have used the Learn to Paint kits. Or not. So I've got the newest of paints and the oldest of minis, because I'm weird like that. I'll have to get his torso a little bit more after it's dry, because the color doesn't quite match. Gilded Brush Studios finds that black and brown is a color that finds its way on almost every model. Yeah, that's it. That is a very flexible, excellent color. Monarch Purple was my go-to, so I was like, why do I need burgundy wine when I can just shade it down? And the bot is telling us about ReaperCon, which, if I recall from the most recent episode on Thursday of Reaper Live, they are in discussions about the next 2 years, same time on Labor Day weekend, but they haven't officially signed anything yet. But it is looking like no date change or anything. And there's a new Home2 Suites that's just down the street from the hotel. So people who have been worried that they haven't been able to get into the main hotel, this will be very soon. We do a little event at a Home2 Suites, and it's really nice, actually. It's got like a little kitchenette and a sitting area. It's like an Embassy Suites, if you've ever been to an Embassy Suites. So it'd be a pretty nice place to stay for a group or a family. And then it's just a short walk across the parking lot, not across any of the very exciting Texas roads. So I mixed Shark Bite with some of that Dark Knight liner, and I think that's a pretty similar color to what his pants are in the Learn to Paint kit. for the skin to dry. Let me see if there are any areas I missed. Alright, this was my dark flesh. I think that's not an insane amount of jump. Got ready flesh as well again. So I will go ahead and get my square wet, but then I'm going to dry it off some with a towel so it's not like sopping wet. And his skin has to dry a little first before we can proceed. Trying to get it down to a decently small size since we're not working on an entire miniature this time. And out of curiosity, I assume that we could cut this if we wish. Into even smaller pieces. Although whether we can then grab those with our ball grabber. Yeah, that's a pretty small piece. Oh, it's so small that it's going back inside. So I'm going to stick with the larger ball and just try to, or the larger square. Just try to get it down to a slightly smaller surface area. Since the up-down worked well on the red, I'm going to stick with that. Trying not to get it onto the pants. So I see I got some pants onto his leg. some of the ruddy flesh. Just patting off the previous color on a towel. I don't think it's going too terribly. A little tougher to get into that bicep. Alright, now I'll get a different one for the pants. So I dip that in water, and I'm just gonna get the excess water off. Just like with a brush, I think, you know, checking and controlling the load of paint that you have on the sponge is probably a pretty key element of making it work. Let's see what lighter blue is. Glacier blue. I don't think I want to jump straight to that. I think I'll mix it with this Shark Bite first. Get just a little bit of glacier. I can hear one of my cats sounding sad in another room, and I'm not sure why she's doing that. Chai Chai, what's up, kitty? Shh, 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 shh. Hey, Polly Schmozzle and Party of Two. Welcome. Today I'm trying to figure out if it is possible to paint with a sponge. This is a sponge grabber and sponges from a nail kit for doing ombre on nails. And so far, I have to admit that I am not displeased. So let's see, he needs his vest, which is painted a gray color. I don't have a... What's up, kitty? What's up? Why are you telling me a story? No, don't jump from that high. There you go. What am I supposed to do for you? You've already had your food and everything. No, for real. For realsies. Oh, wait, I do have Dungeon Gray. I totally have Dungeon Gray. That is actually one of the harder parts of the Learn to Paint kit, is you have to mix a bunch of things. It tells you what to do, how many drops to mix the gray for his shirt, but there just wasn't a convenient gray color, so it's like a 3-color mix or something. What's up, boo? Come here. Thought you were happy having a nap. You weird little monkey. Yeah, so you're sleepy. You need to have a nap. She's yawning away over here. Maybe she didn't like the sun being in her eyes. I see it as that time of day. I don't know if you could hear that, but she's on the back of my chair now. Which may or may not work out well. If she stays up there, everything is fine. If she tries to come down... Hi, are you trying to come down? You're like, I don't care if you're trying to do things with other people. That seems like very much not a cat problem. Right? Is that very much not a cat problem? That's a strictly human problem? Maybe I do want a wet palette. But... just waiting for the cat to start making trouble. As cats do. As cats love to do. Her wiggling is definitely not helping me paint better. But I cannot hold her completely responsible for my lack of precision. Okay, I don't know if this is part that's rubbed off a little bit. I cannot actually remember whether I made his wristbands red in the Learn to Paint kit. Seems like something I would have done. But I cannot remember for sure. While that is drying, what does Mr. Wizard need to be finished? He needs skin. Now, because his face is deep recessed into the hood, I don't think it would be possible to paint with the sponge. So I'll just have to do that the old-fashioned way. But we could probably paint this staff with the sponge, actually. So maybe I should wait on his skin and do the staff first. darker brown than the skin on the staff. Just filling in a few places with that darker red that I missed in the beginning. And Sheiks. My goodness, Twitch ads are just getting ridiculous. Corporations have to ruin everything. The drapery on the cloak looks like it would be fun. Yes, we were experimenting with painting with a sponge today. So I painted the highlights on that with a sponge, which was an interesting experiment. Let's see if this guy is dry enough to proceed. I think he is. But that is an excellent figure. It's Asterion, I think. Asterion the Wizard is an excellent figure to practice on if you want to practice blending rolling folds. He's one I bring out for testing stuff and kind of challenging different methods of blending and whatnot. See if I can pinch this down a little smaller. All right. So we started with Dungeon Gray. I'm going to mix in a bit of Maggot White. Don't want to jump up too quickly. Think it's working okay. I think I'm getting too much on other areas. Hopefully this isn't too extreme of a jump. What kind of sponges were these again? These are for doing nail polish ombre. I don't know that they called them anything particular other than sponges. This is the URL where I bought the kit of both the sponges and the applicator. So, I don't know if I'm authorized to put links in chat or not. I guess I can give it a shot. Let's see. Because I believe I have a link. But it might shut me down and call it gobbledygook. Yep, my message got deleted. I thought Quindy had authorized me at one point, but perhaps not. Yeah, no, it's very reasonably priced. If you look around, you might even find a bundle that's like $1 cheaper, but you know, it's $5. I don't think I saw anything cheaper than $4 when I was looking. There were a couple that had like 2 applicators, which I don't think would be especially useful. I mean, I guess you could be switching between. I don't see that coming up a lot. Get my red one back. I imagine you might have to replace the little squares because eventually they're gonna I mean, it rinsed out better than I expected, but eventually it's gonna get caked up with paint. I know for this type of makeup sponge that when James Wapple is doing things, he'll just, you know, as it gets filled up, he'll just cut some off so that he's got like a fresh part. We could probably do that. You know, if I just cut off that first little section, I'd probably be able to extend the other one a little while. Polly Schmozzle, that'd be really cute for terrain. Yeah, you might, for terrain, you might even want the egg style makeup brushes. So they're probably about as big as one of these holders, and it's shaped like an egg, and you can use either the wider end or the narrower end to tap on in a similar way. These ones, since they have the edges, I don't know if they'd be quite as good, but you can also get, you know, get tweezers or something like this thing, or these are reverse tweezers that close when you're not holding them instead of opening when you're not holding them. So you can get a rounded surface using the and they just call it cosmetic wedges. Yeah, the wedge shaped one. And those are pretty cheap as a rule. All right, so I flunked a little more not getting the red on him. But that is partly me needing to think about it a bit more. Reaper miniatures. Are we doing this for texture purposes? In this particular instance, I'm not doing this for texture purposes. I'm doing this to try to quick blend. But if you used sponges with more open cells, then absolutely. People do it for texture purposes. Gilded Brush Studio was talking about having used, I think, something in between this one and this one. Because you can see this has a bit of a texture too for working on leather. And I've seen people doing chips with it. And other stuff, but other people talking about using it for your slap chop bases where you do the gray and white with the sponges and then the recesses stay black. And other people who've been using it for like painting. So I've been testing it from a painting point of view. So all the highlights on these two miniatures so far have been applied with the sponge. And in the event that John is wondering, this is the piercing ball grabber. That is the name of this tool. I did not make that up. I think they also use them to pick up gems for jewelry making and some other things in various other applications. And what does Kara mean by I'm being sadistic? Aren't I being masochistic, not sadistic? I draw Caroline's. Look, if I wanted to know words, I wouldn't have studied visual arts. Just going to fix where I messed up his vest a little bit. Which was me. I think it would have been entirely possible to do it without messing it up. But while I'm here, I might as well just add to the edges. So he's, oh, we can do the base too. I mean, maybe we can even do with metallic. If I think I have a few metallics over here from the actual kit. But first we will do a brief pause and a reading from the book of Bob Ross. Let's see what wisdom Bob has for us today. In nature, dead trees are just as normal as live trees. But I've got a little dark for us today. I don't know how we apply this to miniature painting. In miniature painting, dead, worn-out brushes are just as normal as new, exciting brushes. I draw Caroline's. It's normal to die, yes, but still I'm not sure how we apply that to miniature painting specifically. But there we go. Last week's reading worked a little better. Because it was about contrast. Because Bob knows. Bob knows you need more contrast. You need more contrast. All right. What was I doing? The base on this guy. Yes, my friend. My little cat friend has things to say to us. Although, wait, I wasn't trying to base coat with these anymore. We gave that up. I forgot. All right, we'll let that dry and work on this guy's staff instead, but not with that color. How's this for reinterpreting Bob? In the course of your painting, imperfect minis are just as normal as perfect or delightful minis. Yes, excellent. Completely just as normal. No one is happy with what they do all the time. And even weirder, something that you really like, other people may not go bananas over, and something that you did that you think is crap, other people think is amazing. And that is perfectly normal too. That happens to everybody. Okay, but we don't want to apply cat hair. Cat hair always wants to apply itself. Not too worried about this getting on the hands because I believe this is the color I painted the hands, so it won't matter. Now, if I add some additional color, there we go. That is not dry. Ooh, I'm sorry. I know, I think the miniature people like most that I've ever done is highly flawed. It has fancy freehand, but it is lacking in some other departments. Contrast. Bob Ross knows. Bob Ross knows where I'm lacking. Kara has been known to say, like this one, what are you, blind? I learned just to roll with it. I don't say anything. I mean, sometimes I'll take examples here on the show and go into why miniatures suck that people might not think suck that I've done. But the art of miniature painting is emphasizing nice and flashy elements so people go ooh and on or too distracted to notice you haven't painted the entire backside. I always paint the back. The back's usually the best part of my miniatures. I painted some really nice looking like trench coats and other things like that, and it's like, why can't I paint the front to look as cool? That would be nice. That would be nice to do. Oops. Well, that move didn't work. I got it all on his leg. And it's not coming off. Quick licking. Yeah, I'm not 100% sure that licking it would solve the problem. We'll just go with he has very suntan ankles. So it kind of flunked working on the base. Maybe I'd have been better with my, my curved tweezers. Let me get in other places, but maybe it would be better just to do standard dry brushing. Right, the sword was a thing. So I don't know if this is giving people some ideas of stuff they could try or just helping you figure out some stuff you don't want to do. Either way is a little bit useful, I guess. Ah, how did I do that? I am like the clumsiest. Yes, my kitty friend? Yes? What's up?
Sure, I think it went pretty well. There were still quite a few areas where we could have done the transition. I'm not just talking about myself, but probably some of the transitions a little better. But I'm trying to think of how we can support people with problems without stopping the rest of the session. And I know some of you have been to all three cohorts
So just highlighting the hands a little bit. Give him some pasty. Wizard fingers, wizard elf. He's an elf wizard. I think that's in his name, even an Irian elf wizard. Doesn't sound like someone who's out soaking up the sun. G1A53 is going to ask if I'm doing non-metallic metal for the sword. I thought I would do metallics just to see how it works with the sponge, since we've done a lot of regular matte paints for the other parts. I thought it'd be interesting to give it a shot with the... But are you wondering, I guess, from a blending point of view, whether it's nice enough, you know, whether it can do nice enough blends to work with non-metallic metal, which is also an interesting question. So maybe I will do that. I'm slightly concerned I have a cat who's about to try doing stupid things. Yep. Nope. 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 Nope.
I don't know how valuable that is.
You can't come on the desk right now.
Support room open with that help desk person just available to jump in if they can. But I also
I draw Carolines. There's a hot lady on Instagram who I follow because she has great insight into the economy and microeconomics. I liked one of her posts recently and got a return follow. Smart, hot money lady likes miniatures. I may not be hot, but hot people like me, and that's even better. And she's encouraging the kitty. Don't encourage the kitty, Kara. She looks ready to rampage. Oh, what are you trying to do now?
what about
You know, it's 2 hours a week. I ask you not to be a menace.
let's make sure everyone's working. I know that makes sense the time of the training.
And she's like, but that's when I feel the most menacey.
There's an hour-long session and then
She's over here being so uncoordinated. She's like, I could cause so much more trouble if I was actually coordinated.
something about where we actually make them sign off on, yes, it's working from here, no, it's not working.
Is this you trying to get over here in a really convoluted, dumb way? Wow.
Because I know we did that.
The look on kitty faces when they have bad ideas and you know they have bad ideas. Yeah, I don't know what the idea is. I do know it's bad. Either my paint or my computer cords or something is not going to come out of this as happy as I might like.
You're the problem.
All right, attempting to ignore the distraction, which she's making more and more challenging. Kitty, remember when you were sleeping? That was fun. Maybe you should try that again. Hey, 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 no. No. Don't make me get the spritzy. I'm gonna spritz. Okay. Luckily that worked. The equivalent of small child, we were gonna play the quiet game. Yeah, and it worked about as well. Luckily, hatred of the spritzy sound worked better. And she's completely distracted me about what I was gonna... Right, we're gonna try non-metallic metal on this guy's sword, if it ever dries. All right, I will start with the Dungeon Gray. I can't tell if that one is wet or not. I'm gonna get a fresh one. Moose the cat will straight up stare down a water bottle, glaring at it as if she's trying to play a game of chicken and maybe the bottle will blink. It never does. Why has she decided that she does not like the water bottle? So, I pondered where to be lighter and darker. I am a little bit concerned that this thing is like a really amazing cat hair delivery system. But the problem may be the cat that sat in the center of my desk before I got started today. Because that happened. So there's probably cat hair all over my piece of paper that I'm using as palette paper. Because of the super helpful kitty. So just to repeat, my apologies to people who've been here the entire time. These miniatures are older Bones USA from when we first started using Siocast. They use a different formula now that isn't bendy like that. But I didn't want the miniatures to go to waste. So I saved them for doing tests like this. Let's mix directly into the Black Knight and see what we get. Oh yeah, that's a nice color.
And that's why I suggested we do something the day of, the night before, because, they do really have to prioritize, other things, but the other parts of it.
Let's see, mix a little more of that maggot white in here.
shoulder exactly, but, yeah, yes, it was. Yeah, so that actually helps too, but I mean, even from training, when we're saying we get to training, that we don't, as you said, we don't have licenses, we're not, everyone in the room is gonna go walk through this, because we can't get them connected to all these resources. So that's kind of a peripheral problem that we're talking about as far as support and getting set up, but maybe that's where we reduce the overhead of support if we say, we know this group of
Yeah, I
people
wouldn't say it's perfect,
are
but
not developers, we
it's
still
not
want them to
bad.
have this experience and go through it as much as possible. But how do we get them to just sort of watch along someone else over someone's shoulder and then just watch out? I don't have an ideal solution to that because we're all remote for this, but if there are ways to do that, if we were really just talking about we should get on Teams or in the room together, share it and they share your screen, but since we're there watching the other content, we can't really do that at the same time. But maybe we can do it later. Maybe when we do go into the go work on this, guys. Some of you could create rooms for people to jump into together and share their, work
Do the
together
edges.
on the outcome. I don't know, just saying. Yeah.
With more cat hair. Oop, I actually never put the extra light on the palette. I am afraid that my German is not good enough to translate Guter Vader's statement. Die Palette ist immer im Bild. Don't know what build means. But I'm not displeased with that sword, considering. Picture. So overall, I think that was a decently successful test. Apart from the edges on the sword, I think. Well, we painted his face. I did all the base coating with the brush in the end, though, actually, so I haven't done anything else to his face at this point. So pretty much everything was done with the sponge. I would say it, or I wielding it, failed the worst on the base, actually. But apart from messing up his feet, I think it worked pretty well. So thank you for hanging out with me to test G1A53. Yeah, no, it worked better than I thought as well. I didn't get a lot up here. I probably should have tried to get a little more up on the hilt, but I suspect that doing that with a little bit by hand would be more sensible. Then there's just a few little things to finish up the chest and whatnot for him, and just his hair and his little pouch, and then the top of the staff for that guy. But I don't think I could have painted the two of these in the same amount of time with my standard technique. So I think from a speed point of view, it has promise. Perhaps I will be able to use these to fast track some of my board game miniatures. So thanks for coming along with me for the test. I hope you found it interesting, if not useful. And I'll see you next week. I don't really, I haven't really made a plan for what I want to do next week. So if there's anything you'd like to see, please let me know. We're going to be rating Quantum Minis. Say hi, spread the Reaper love. Thanks for coming. Bye, everybody.